I'm 32 now, but this happened when I was 25. I work in IT, long hours, mostly indoors, so when my cousin Jake invited me for a weekend fishing trip, I said yes right away. It was early spring, the kind of weather where mornings still sting your skin, but the afternoons smell like thawing earth. We drove up to a quiet lake in northern Michigan that he swore was completely off the radar. No cabins, no tourists, just water, trees, and silence. I didn't realize at the time how much that silence would get to me. We arrived on a Friday afternoon. The dirt road that led to the lake was narrow and bumpy, lined with birch trees that flashed white against the fading sun. Jake joked that it felt like driving into a horror movie, and we laughed it off. We set up camp right near the shoreline. One tent, a cooler, our rods, and a tiny fire pit Jake had made from old stones. The first night was peaceful. We drank cheap beer, talked about high school memories, and fell asleep to the soft slap of water against the rocks. The next morning, we rowed out before sunrise, mist curling low over the water. The world felt muffled, dreamlike. For hours, nothing happened except the quiet sound of line reeling and the occasional loon call. I remember thinking it was perfect, empty, isolated, safe. It was just after noon when Jake pointed across the lake. "You see that?" he asked. Through the haze, I spotted a man standing near the opposite shore. He wasn't fishing or camping, just standing perfectly still at the water's edge, facing us. We waved, but he didn't move. I figured maybe he was some local out for a smoke or taking a break from hiking. Jake muttered, "Weird place to just stand," and I agreed. When I looked back a few minutes later, the man was gone. We joked that maybe he didn't like our taste in music. Jake had been blasting classic rock from a small speaker and went back to fishing. But I caught myself glancing at that shoreline again and again. That night, the wind picked up and the lake made strange, low sounds. Around 10 p.m., we were sitting by the fire when Jake froze mid-sentence. "Do you see that light?" he whispered. Across the lake, through the trees, there was a faint glow, like a flashlight bobbing slowly along the shore. It wasn't bright enough to be a car or a campfire, just one steady beam moving between the trees, stopping now and then, as if scanning the ground. We watched it for a few minutes. Jake called out, "Hey, you good over there?" No answer. The light went out instantly. We sat there waiting, listening. The only thing we heard was the ripple of water and the fire crackling behind us. After a while, Jake tried to shrug it off. "Probably some hunter or something," he said. But his voice didn't sound convinced. When I finally crawled into my sleeping bag that night, I could swear I heard footsteps crunching somewhere behind the tent. Slow, deliberate, circling. I woke up before dawn to the sound of the boat chain rattling. Jake was still asleep. I unzipped the tent quietly and peeked out. Our small aluminum boat was drifting a few feet from shore, the chain half submerged. I walked down to pull it back in and froze. On the other side of the lake, that same man was standing there again. Closer this time. Even in the dim light, I could see details. A dark jacket, wet pants clinging to his legs, and something long in his hand that caught the faint glint of morning light. Maybe a stick, maybe not. "Jake," I hissed, but my voice cracked. He stumbled out, rubbing his eyes. When he saw the figure, he went pale. The man didn't move, just stood there, staring straight at us. Jake shouted, "Hey, what do you want?" The man slowly lifted his arm, not waving, not pointing, just lifting it halfway, as if to say, "Stay." Then he turned and disappeared into the trees. We didn't wait. We threw everything into the car. Rods, cooler, half the tent still attached to its poles, and sped off down that dirt road. The whole drive back, I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see headlights behind us. There were none. We reported it to a ranger when we got back into town. He said no one else was registered camping near that lake, and there hadn't been reports of trespassers. He asked if we wanted to file a formal report. Jake just shook his head. For weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about it, about how quiet the man was, how still, about how our boat chain didn't just come loose by itself. Sometimes I'd tell myself he was just another camper, curious, or maybe lost. But deep down, I know that whoever he was, he didn't want us there. It's been 7 years. I haven't gone fishing since. Last month, Jake texted me a photo from his new phone. A lake he'd found on a hiking app. "Looks familiar?" he wrote. My stomach dropped. The shoreline, the curve of the trees. It was the same place. But this time, there was a dark figure near the water's edge. Just standing, staring straight at the camera.
I'm 29 now, but I still think about what happened during that weekend fishing trip 2 years ago. I'm not the outdoorsy type. I'm a paramedic, used to cities and noise. But my girlfriend at the time, Mia, loved quiet places. We rented a small cabin near Lake Pemberton in northern Ontario, mostly to disconnect. It wasn't a deep wilderness kind of lake. A few other cabins dotted the shoreline. But it felt remote enough that you could forget the world existed. The first 2 days were peaceful, until that last afternoon. It was a calm Sunday morning, overcast but not cold. I remember frying eggs while Mia sat on the deck, brushing her hair, still half asleep. We joked that we'd barely caught anything and that maybe we should just buy fish on the way home. Around noon, she convinced me to go out one last time. "For good luck," she said, smiling. We paddled out to the middle of the lake in a small aluminum canoe the cabin owner had left for guests. The water was dark and glassy, the air heavy with that earthy smell of wet pine. For a while, nothing happened. Then Mia started humming, a slow, tuneless thing. And I remember thinking how calm everything was. It felt like time had stopped. About an hour in, something heavy tugged on my line. I thought it was a log at first, but when I reeled it up, I saw fabric, a piece of dark, waterlogged cloth. It looked like part of a jacket sleeve. "Gross," Mia said, leaning over to look. I pulled it closer, but when the sleeve cleared the surface, something else came up with it, a shape, pale and smooth. I dropped the rod instantly. The sleeve slipped beneath the water, vanishing without a sound. We just sat there, staring at the small circles rippling outward. Mia whispered, "Was that skin?" I told her it was probably a mannequin. I didn't believe it, but I needed to say something. We decided to head back, but the lake suddenly felt different. Heavier, somehow. The water made small, sucking noises against the canoe as if clinging to it. Mia kept glancing behind us. Halfway to shore, she froze. "There's someone in the water," she said. I turned and saw it, a head barely breaking the surface, maybe 50 feet away. It wasn't moving, just floating, hair spread like seaweed. I started paddling faster, but when I looked again, the head was gone. By the time we reached the dock, Mia was shaking. "It was looking at us," she said, her voice cracking. I told her it must have been driftwood or a trick of light, but my hands were trembling. When I went back later to tie the canoe, I noticed something wedged between the slats of the dock, a small button, metal with rusted edges. It looked like it had been underwater for a long time. That night, we tried to pretend everything was fine. We drank wine, played cards. Around midnight, Mia went to bed while I stayed up scrolling through my phone. Then I heard it. Faint splashing outside, like someone slowly wading through shallow water. I turned off the light and peered through the window. The lake was pitch black, but near the shore, I could make out a shape. A person, knee-deep in the water, facing the cabin. I couldn't see their face, just their outline, slouched, unmoving. I whispered Mia's name, but before she could come over, the figure stepped backward into the dark until it vanished completely beneath the water. We left everything that night, clothes, food, gear, and drove straight back to the highway. I don't remember much of the drive except the sound of my heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. The police searched the area the next morning. They didn't find anyone, alive or dead. The officer said the lake sometimes gives up old debris. Maybe that's what I hooked. I mentioned the figure, but he just nodded like he'd heard that kind of story before. For weeks I kept replaying it in my head. The sleeve, the head, the person standing in the water. I even called the cabin owner, asking if anyone had drowned there. He hesitated before saying, "A long time ago, yeah. But the body was never recovered." That button I found? I still have it. I don't know why I didn't throw it away. It's been 2 years. Mia and I broke up not long after. She said I'd changed, that I kept watching lakes whenever we passed one. Last month, I went through some of my old camping photos. In one picture from that weekend, the lake looks calm, perfectly still. But in the reflection of the water, right near our canoe, there's something faint, like the outline of a face, half submerged, staring up. And I know for a fact, when I took that photo, no one else was there.